Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast. My name is Joe.
My name is Karam.
My name is Pras.
Welcome Karam and Pras, and thanks for joining us amid a flurry of babies for the rest of the Scoutcasters. So fresh from Seb becoming a dad last month, Somerset resident Andy has become a dad again. And in unrelated news, 9 months ago, Yeovil beat Torquay 2-0. So unrelated news, that one. Karam, welcome back, Scoutcast regular, now back again, which is great. Thanks for filling in. And Pras, straight from the Meet the Manager episode this week, which went down very well, in which you revealed your wildcard. You're back again, so we're going to discuss more about your wildcard. So thanks for stepping in. We're going to get Gameweek 7 out of the way quickly. Me and Pras will be wanting to get this quickly. Karam might want to linger a little bit because he's done quite well. As you can see by the arrows, the colour of the arrows and our ranks at the moment, Karam's doing rather well and me and Pras aren't. We're doing less well. We're still doing okay. So Karam, I'll put your team up on the screen. This is your game week 7, if everyone can remember back there. Final points were 50. So do you want to sort of go through your team quickly? Who are your heroes and villains?
Yeah, for sure. I think this game week was really about Vardy. The captaincy has failed. I think for the second time of the season, I did my captaincy blank, and both cases was from Ronaldo last game week and the one that has gone. My vice captain was actually Vardy, as you can see the screen. And with the flying rumors a few minutes before the deadline, I had the temptation to take it off and put it on Vardy. And safe to say, I never considered Salah for the captaincy against Man City. But I just decided not to do anything because the news were not concrete enough to make that change. And I kind of half regret it, but nice to have it. And I think Vardy for the last couple of games was my best transfer of the season so far.
Oh, of many seasons, surely, because everyone's been ignoring it. Now, what is this? We mentioned that you on a couple of episodes ago that you got it in. You put some tweet up saying if I get 300 likes, I'll get Vardy in. Is that true? Were you not going to get him in unless you got this?
I think getting Vardy was really coincidence. When I wildcarded in game week 4, I started with Calvert-Lewin, in which he turned out to be injured. I moved to Bamford, who got an assist against Newcastle, and then injured. And I had 3 million in the bank and have no idea what to do with it. So I just posted on Twitter, guys, give me 200 likes and I'll get Vardy.
Yeah.
For a hit, because I remember I used that transfer on Gray to Norwich, I think. That was my free transfer, and I had to take a hit just because I want to feel a strong 11. And I got something like ridiculous 900 likes instead. And I said, I'm committing, here you go. And thanks to those 900 people, I'm getting 19 points ahead of the curve, in which we might touch on Vardy this episode. And that's the story continues. I like the next fixtures for him, and hopefully for more.
And still... people aren't getting him in on their wildcards.
No one gets him. He's not a good pick, guys.
No. No. Yeah, you don't want everyone to get him because then it will become valueless for you. But what a differential. Pras, let's have a look at your team. So you're wildcarding away from this. So who from this? So you got 38, but it was actually 34 because you took a hit. So who sort of roughly you desperate to get rid of and who's staying? Definitely.
Look, I mean, I was always looking for game week 8 as the segue to wildcard. As it happened, there were lots of injuries. I was the same, the DCL to Bamford, basically running into injuries one after the other. Unlike Karam, though, I went for a hit. I got in Lukaku, who I thought was the best captain candidate. I got rid of Jota, who I had for 3 weeks, did nothing. Got in Rafinha. He did nothing, and I got Christensen, who I thought would play because Thiago had played over the midweek. None of them worked out. It was one of those weeks, and I've gone from about 80k to wherever I am, 360k in 2 weeks. But what that means is there is a very narrow gap between those ranks because if I can come down, if I can have 2 good weeks, I'll be back up there.
Yeah, I mean, a similar position to me, except I've played my wildcard. So, but the same thing. Last couple of weeks, it's just that combination of bad luck and certain decisions. There was a couple of decisions on my wildcard. So, for example, I took a punt on Traore, and that didn't work out. And also the captaincy, not going for Salah, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Why don't we just captain him every week? But yeah, similar things. So I'll put my team out. I don't want to linger too long on this. So I got 32 points, so just 2 points less. But yeah, as you said, there's about 30 or 40 points between us and the top 20k or so. Hopefully there. So I got Cancelo in for Williams. So Williams, I just didn't want from Norwich, and I had enough money to upgrade him to Cancelo. I also had that in mind that Man City's good run. So it was a sort of, yes, they've got Liverpool, but I'm getting him in for the long term. It's a good transfer to make. So I'm pleased with that transfer, even though he got me 0. Salah, obviously, I should have captained. I was out on the Saturday morning. I didn't hear any of the rumours about Ronaldo not starting. If I had, I would have been tempted to move the captaincy off. I possibly would have been tempted to get Lukaku in. I don't know, because I wasn't in that position. So I didn't know that. So Ronaldo not starting was just not on my radar. So he was my captain. So I'm actually, despite the look of my team, I'm actually quite happy with it going forward, because I've got a Chelsea defender, a City defender, Alexander-Arnold, who has been removed from some teams. Salah, I'm happy with. Ronaldo, I'm very happy with against Leicester. Armstrong, I got in for his Southampton's great run. And Antonio keeping. So it's only really Jota, Greenwood, and Sarr. So it's that block there, midfielders. But plenty, I'm sure you'll better advise me, but there's plenty of options to replace them with. If I choose to this week, which I probably won't, unless Jota's definitely out, but it'll probably be next week, they will go. So we're not going to do a rough with the smooth because it's so long ago and we've dwelt on Gameweek 7 enough. We want to look forward to Gameweek 8 and beyond. Luckily, Pras, it's wildcarding, so we can get some updates on that. Karam, what else is happening in the show tonight?
Yeah, for sure. So we had a quick roundup to the game week, as we just spoke about. We will mention strikers. There we different. We've been in a template for the first few game weeks, and is it time to move the template a little bit? Are Ronaldo and Lukaku necessary anymore, perhaps? Man City, for the good run of the fixture, started with their annual customary 5-0 win against Burnley, perhaps. So who to target, who to get, and who actually starts for this game week? We will try to make sense of things for the next couple of games for Man City. Pras has prepared for us the wildcard. We will chat about risk options, how many of them can we get on a wildcard, and some analogy behind that, which is brilliant from him. He prepared that for us. Next, for fixtures, of course, who have the best, who have the worst fixtures going forward, and some community team latest differentials, and our team reveals, including Pras, wildcards draft, and Alex team as well along the way.
Yes, definitely. Thanks a lot for that. Just before we move on to the first topic, which is those strikers. So we want to see if we can get some different strikers going around people's heads. So, seeing as you got Vardy in already, Karam, I'm sure there's some others as well to consider. Just want to say hello to those early birds that have joined us in the chat. Nearly 300 of you so far. I think we're competing with some internationals tonight, England, etc., etc. Ronaldo, someone was posting that Ronaldo's just scored 2 tonight already. I know it's only Luxembourg, but then again, it's only Leicester at the weekend, so good news. Hello to Pepe Nacho, Ben Allam, Ali, Eddie, FBL Thinker, Roger, Karam, you're here. Hang on a minute. You're there?
Hello.
There? Okay.
Yeah,
so you're multitasking. You're answering people in the chat. Great. Mark O'Leary, hiya Mark. Jonathan, Chris, John, Felanio, and more and more and more. I can't read out all your names. Jack Brokenshire. Lots and lots of you. Thanks so much for that. But only 30 likes. So only 1 in 10 of you has pressed the like button.
The like button.
So If you do like us, do press the like button. If you hate us, press the like button. It doesn't matter. Even if you're just mildly indifferent to us, just keep pressing the like button. So I do appreciate that. It does something to do with algorithms and YouTube, and I don't know. I'm too old for that kind of thing. Let's move on to strikers. Here's Ronaldo, fresh from his alleged 2 goals against Luxembourg already tonight. So I put a picture of him up because a lot of people are thinking of getting rid of him either on their wildcard this week. Certainly I am in game week 9 looking to remove him for Lukaku. But there's plenty of other options to consider. And especially for those who are wildcarding, they can freshen up all of their front line as well. Vardy's form, array of strong options in the 7 to 8 million category. Great options around the 6 million mark. Lots and lots to consider. So I'm going to read out some community questions and hopefully we'll better answer them. We'll throw up some stats and see where we are with them. So Dino says, is it worth keeping hold of Antonio? Yes. Surely he's one of the best FPL assets of the game. Will you just answer your question, Dino? Yes. But we'll come to that in a minute. Dash, Adam Armstrong, bring him in or not? I put here the fertile Andy. That's actually Andy, the Scoutcaster Andy, who's obviously fertile. Asks if perma captaining Salah is a good idea. In which case, are Ronaldo or Lukaku necessary? Wacker, could Sam Maximum go off over the next few weeks? Probably alluding to his team's new owners and wanting to impress. Rumour mill, he's on a wild card. Is Hwang at Wolves an option? And Red Lightning, is Ronaldo worth holding for one more week? So lots to discuss there. Let's go to you first, Pras. We'll talk about your wild cards team in a bit, but you can give us a sneak preview of who's in your thoughts as your 3 strikers that you think are the best ones to get for the next few game weeks.
Look, I think Lukaku goes without saying, and I know we'll debate that if that is really the meta thinking, but I think the popular view is that Lukaku is a premium spot. He has great fixtures, and he's nailed on for the Chelsea attack. So I think he's one that I have in my thoughts. The second one is a mid-priced attack spot, which is basically Antonio's for the moment. And I know there was a question on this, but honestly, like you said, he's posting premium numbers when he's fit. We're blessed to have a number of options at that price point. Until he's fit, keep Antonio. Yeah. Then you drop down to whoever you want. Watkins, a little bit up to DCL, Bamford. So that's the other. And then in the the budget attack category, you have Tony, you have Armstrong, and Hwang. So you could, at least in my thought process, I'm trying to keep these 3 price points. Mm-hmm. You could equally look at, for a week, Ronaldo makes sense. In the mid-priced, I'll talk about a differential, from Aston Villa, who looks good. But at least for now, in my draft, I have Lukaku, Antonio, and Tony.
Yeah. I've seen some people with like a 3-5-2, just 2 strikers, and they've got like one of the Aston Villa, Archer or Davis or one of those people, those 4.5. So it's essentially sort of a wasted place, really. But do you think there's value in having those 3 strikers and those price points that you mentioned, that you think it's important because there's so many options?
I do. First to answer the question on not having a 3rd striker. To be honest, I'm struggling with midfielders. I don't know who the 3rd, 4th, 5th midfielder is. We're now, it used to be Sarr. We don't know if Rafinha is fit next week. So apart from Salah, who's your go-to midfielder? People are going to Son, but we know there are lots of good options in attack. So I think, for me, a 3-striker setup is the one that works best.
Okay, Karam, are you on 3 strikers, and if so, who?
Yeah, I agree on the 3 strikers approach. I'm currently set with Ronaldo/Lukaku because I made the transfer early in the international break. I have still Antonio and I have Vardy, which looks a bit more expensive to the template, who go for like a 6 or 7 million. But actually, until now, I'm not struggling with the midfielders I have. I think last few game weeks we've been sort of blessed with the budget midfielders returning. In my case, I've had Gray, who got something against Norwich, Sarr, Rafinha as well, who delivered. So I'm not in a situation where I really need to go down in the third spot attacker and upgrade the midfielder. Until this moment in time, I'm still doing all right with this.
Well, I mean, look, your top 50k with going for these cheaper midfielders and investing more up front. So clearly it's been working. But do you think it will the next few game weeks? I mean, can Everton maintain it? Their fixtures stiffen a little, and then you got the likes of KDB, Son, and Rashford coming back. I see, in a few game weeks' time.
Yeah, it will be tricky. I think Rafinha is the one that is likely to keep up his pace with the points.
Yeah.
The other ones are really the ones who will not sustain the returns, but they are perfect for jumping on and off. The ones who started with Ben Rahma and then moved on to Sarr, for example, are maximizing on that sort of price point. I don't think that having it Gray for 10 game weeks will be at the end the best way to go, but going around from Gray to somebody else like Torres, for example, or someone else in that price range would be the best way to maximize the points.
Okay.
It's basically the swap in your team, and having Salah, Lukaku / Ronaldo / Vardy are the permanent ones might be the way, at least for the next few game weeks at least. Now, Son and KDB, for example, are the ones that don't fit in the template. And for each of them have really upside, being very differential, being really having good fixtures as well. But the template, I think, to me, looks really strong than just breaking it completely and go for that way. But there are opportunities. Well,
I mean, the three striker template, if we're thinking in prices, it's Lukaku / Ronaldo, Antonio / someone else at that price, Tony / someone else around that price. So what I've got here is some strikers sorted per minutes per XGI, expected goal involvement. This is for all the season. The best one is Calvert-Lewin. He's 8 million. So we look at Antonio's price. Hey, guess what? He's 8 million as well. I mean, he's going to be less because he's been in many of our teams since the start. So I think he's probably 7-7 in my team. I don't know, 7-7, 7-8, something like that. But nevertheless, you can see that's an easy move. Antonio's hamstrings pop. Calvert-Lewin is an easy one to get in. And if he is fit, he is the best striker to have in terms of expected goal involvement so far this season on the very limited showing that he's had. And then you got Ronaldo there at the top, and Lukaku is still messing around in this table. So this is the top 10, I think. So Ronaldo and Lukaku interchangeable. And then you've also got Callum Wilson, if he's back. New owners, Newcastle, could be a very intriguing. Now, if he's fit for this game against Spurs, and I think Newcastle have only got one or two bad fixtures coming up. I think Callum Wilson is, I mean, it's just for fitness really, but I think he's a great option. You got Hwang, and you got your man Vardy. I've skipped over Werner because we'll come to him in a sec. And the Tony there. So you got Tony messing in, and there's a few more tables we'll show up. There's some few more options as well. So just looking at this table, this is just all season expected minutes per XGI. Who kind of, either of you, Karam or Pras, who screams out as an interesting, perhaps differential alternative striker pick here?
You want to go, Pras, and then I can go.
I think Calvert-Lewin. One name I don't see here is Bamford because he's been injured.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the two names that stand out to me. If I was to break this premium, mid-priced, budget striker, trifecta, I would say I could upgrade Tony to somebody in the 7 to 8 million bracket. Mm-hmm. And look, I mean, we all knew this about DCL before he got injured, that Rafa sets up in a way that they feed headers into him, and he's great at heading the ball. So he is going to put up these numbers whilst he's there. He's the one in my consideration. I would Callum Wilson, we saw some pictures of him training this morning. We have to see, because there's one new manager bounce, but then there's a new owner's bounce, and we'll see how that works at Newcastle with the manager change, will the formation change. This also applies to Saint Maximin as well. And then Vardy will come to. I mean, he's just hard to fit in. You either go Lukaku or Vardy, or do you go Lukaku and Vardy, something like what Karam has? But what does that do to your midfield is the question.
Yeah, four goals, 4 shots. There we go. 4 shots on target for Vardy. That's what he does. Karam. I mean, we know that Vardy's done you well, and presumably he's going to stay in your team until he stops. But who else from this looks like an alternative striker that perhaps people can consider, wildcarding or not?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it would be really a tough decision to make in a couple of weeks' time with Antonio. Might be surprising, but I just had a look at his stats between game week 1 and 3 at one side, and then since he's back from the suspension between game week 4 and 8, and I can see a really big difference in his performance. The fixtures to me look a little bit similar, so I would say that the level of the fixtures were pretty similar, and still I can see that, for example, the first 3 game weeks he had an XGI of a 3.58 in the first 3, but he had only 1.87 in the 4 game weeks after that. So it shows that his stats are almost halved compared to the first run of games. Of course, he will not score 16 points every game week, but maybe over the time with the fixtures. I know Antonio, I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite FPL players, but with the fixtures that is coming up, there might be a case where you can go without him. For someone like Tony, in game week, 10, I think, when the fixtures turn for Brentford and they start playing Norwich, for example, Burnley in game week 10, and Norwich, Newcastle, Everton, this kind of a swap is in my thinking. It could be him, it could be Vardy, depends on when he runs out. The issue is I will never know, because I will always have that trust in Vardy. Okay, he needs that shot to score, but he can do what he did to me last season, not being invisible for many weeks, especially the last part of the season. So I think one of Vardy or Antonio will go down to one of the 6.5-ish strikers, and that's the case I'm gonna make, that in a few game weeks time, maybe we see a slot in the striker line where you have Tony, Hwang, maybe Pookie, if you fancy something from game week 10 onwards. And to me, it's really hard to go without Lukaku, not with the fixture that is coming up. So I think that's a slot.
What about, Werner? So, I'm just going to put, this is the same table, but just for the last 4 game weeks. So this has changed. So this is the last 4 game weeks, minutes per expected goal involvement. Ronaldo top. And then Werner. Then Tony, that does highlight him. Vardy, Hwang. Antonio is still there. Aubameyang's getting better. Lukaku's way down there. So a minutes per expected goal involvement. Werner, every 97 minutes. Lukaku. I mentioned this name because it's one of those names where, when I do those unfashionable tables of players, one of the criteria for being on there is almost like people laugh at it. And people say, why is that? So I remember doing that ages ago with Luke Shaw back in December last year. Oh, Luke Shaw, he's eating all the pies, and except he's whipping in all those assists and getting clean sheets and getting huge scores every week, and that was what he was doing at that time. But people still weren't getting him in, and people still think Werner's a joke. So, yeah.
I mean, I liked Werner when he was playing the Bundesliga. But I didn't see the same player in the Premier League so far. And I really wonder about his minutes, given that I presume Lukaku will be a lock. And that leaves Tuchel with 2 spots for Havertz, Mount, Werner, Ziyech. I'm not just entirely sure how many minutes he will get. I think the top 4 of last season will play, I think also the Europa League teams, they will play every 3 days between now and the next international break. Surely the minutes would be shared even with Lukaku. Now, to me at least, I'm not brave enough to go Werner over Lukaku. If anything, I might double up on attack. And if I wanted to double up on Chelsea, I would rather double up on defense because they bring much higher value.
Yeah.
So the case would be, you need to really be different by having both, or you just take a huge risk with going Werner over Lukaku. I just don't think that's something I can do.
I mean, Pras, you're wildcarding. Have you even thought I might get Werner instead of Lukaku?
Not instead, but I mean, on the question, I would say 2 things. I mean, number one, as managers, we need to have an open mind. I mean, Lingard proved us all wrong last year. Ross Barkley's done it. Theo Walcott's done it many times. So I think, number one, we need to forget what happened last season. We all had him beginning of the season. He burnt us pretty much every time we went for him. So this year, we need to look at him with fresh eyes. I mean, he's not the front striker anymore. I think the last 4 game weeks are a little bit skewed because Mount didn't have the minutes, and Mount is the guy who will come in. And Mount has a double impact. I mean, number one, he will help Lukaku's numbers. And number two, he will eat into Werner's minutes. Because I was talking to a few Chelsea fans. So Thomas Tuchel can either go 5-3-2. So in the 2, then you have Werner and Lukaku playing with each other. But when Mount is in the team or Havertz wants to fit in, then he could go just the pivot. So 5-2-3-1, and in that Werner is less effective. So now that Mount is back, there is a chance that Werner's minutes are impacted. But look, he is, he's doing well. His confidence looks to be back. He scored 2 goals last night as well for Germany. So open mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of hovering. See, I see this Brentford fixture as it's nice to have Chelsea, but it's not an urgent, because Brentford are a better side than perhaps we thought pre-season. But at the same time, I'd like to see a bit more. But Mason Mount's definitely in my thoughts because he's affordable for me. And I have got midfield slots ready and waiting to be taken. But we're talking attackers here as well. St. Maximin, also another player like Vardy, has been ignored, keeps racking up the points. Lookman at Leicester is interesting at 6. I'm not sure many people are going to go for him, but there again, he is a name to put in the mix. But Watkins at 7.3 for Villa. Now he is proven. He was proven last season, and I've got another table here, the goals imminent table, and Watkins even higher on this one. So there is a bit of XG filtering going on, but it's essentially you've got to have 10 shots, but only 1 goal maximum over the last 4. So that implies, you've got the potential to get more. So you look at things like shots on target, shots inside the box to get a bit more nuance. So it's looking at perhaps who will score in the future, but also why haven't they been scoring. But Watkins is on this list. Jota's on this list. He's always on this list. Gallagher at Crystal Palace is top of this list. 11 goal attempts, 7 shots inside the box. I want to see a bit more of Crystal Palace with Milivojevic and Gallagher before I make a decision on him, I think. Adam Armstrong, my player, is there with 11 goal attempts, 6 inside the box, 4 of those on target. XG doesn't like him though at the moment, so I'm hoping Fixtures breeds form there. Mason Greenwood and Pogba, I don't think people are looking at Manchester United probably with their fixture run coming up, but Bowen and Antonio is still there, and Harvey Barnes. But I've left off one name, Harry Kane. Now talking about I'm not seeing Harry Kane in anyone's team. People are thinking of Son, but Harry Kane, this is sort of the time where he comes into form. Either of you considering Harry Kane at all, or you got an eye on him for future fixtures? I know the fixtures, Newcastle's good, goes a bit bad, then it gets good again. So considering Kane?
I could do. I mean, again, open mind. This is another reason why having the Lukaku spot is important. I mean, watch Lukaku for the next 4 games while he has great fixtures, and then if you would like to switch to Kane, if he's looking like coming back into it, and he looked good in the last game without any return. perhaps it's an area you go to.
Yeah.
Not in my thoughts at the moment, again, because of the Lukaku factor.
No, Karam, I mean, you can probably... It's not a big stretch to do Vardy to Kane. I mean, it's a 1 or 2 million, but it's not a huge stretch. Tempted?
No, yeah, certainly not. It's. I think one of the reasons why I'm planning, or I'm keeping the Lukaku spot and the Vardy spot is Gameweek 12. The fixtures turn for Spurs, and surely Harry Kane will score goals. And I think the fixtures are really good. And from Gameweek 12 until really Gameweek 22, I'm looking now. They only face Liverpool and Leicester in the run. So if you consider a mid-term or a long-term, you can make the swap. You can also do the hokey cookie with Lukaku, Kane, and Ronaldo in game week 15. I think where Ronaldo becomes a great option again for the captaincy even. So I think that's another reason why I'm really sticking with the 11.5 to 12 million striker, because it gives me that option to go around these players.
Yeah.
Now, do I want that for Son and De Bruyne perhaps? Maybe. But I just feel like it's easier to move on and off these players than pushing the funds to midfield, and Salah is not going anywhere. So it feels that it might be the play now.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I mean,
this one.
I mean, Pras, I mean, what do you think? Wildcards, lots of people have got Son in for their wild cards. Kane, not in many options. But Spurs fixtures, Newcastle's great, but it gets a bit tricky for, I think it's 3 games. So does that put you off Spurs?
I particularly haven't looked at Son myself, but I have seen him in a few drafts. I think for me it comes down to just trusting Spurs as a team. I don't know if I trust them yet. I couldn't bank my money on them beating Newcastle. I mean, they should, but will they? For Son, there is a reason he has shown some talismanic returns over the last few. If they score a goal, he's either assisting or scoring. So I can see why people are going there. He's also obviously easier to reach as a price point. Goes back to the point that we don't really have any midfielders. So he sounds like, somebody who you can put some money into if you're not going for a City midfielder. But Kane is just that much harder given all the other options in the 3.
He's someone I'm thinking of, not yet. But so looking at those fixtures, just to remind people, they've got Newcastle next, then it's West Ham, Manchester United and Everton. So there are 3 fixtures there where I'm not sure he's going to get too many returns. Then it gets much better after then, as Karam pointed out. I haven't got those fixtures to hand, by the way. But I remember they get much better. And as Karam pointed out, I think it's until game week 22 they get pretty good with just a couple of poor games in that time. And it's around that time where, I mean, I'm not fully convinced about Lukaku yet. I am with Ronaldo because he keeps putting those stats. He keeps putting those stats back up. He's got the pedigree, as we know. It's an understatement. So far he's had the fixtures. And I think once Rashford's back, I think they're going to gel a bit more. So Ronaldo is someone in my thoughts when Manchester United's fixtures turn. Lukaku I don't know about. And then there's Kane floating around. And Kane, traditionally has been such a reliable source of points and captaincy. And, I often think it's not will he score, it's how many he'll score once he's in his stride. And we know that it doesn't really happen in August. But, yeah, I mentioned him because I'm definitely thinking about him. Not yet, but soon. And I don't discount him.
I mean, on Ronaldo, Joe, quickly, I mean, there was a question as well on if you have Ronaldo, do you keep him this week? 100% keep him this week. I mean, Leicester have conceded the most shots in the box of all teams this season.
Yes.
And if United gets shots, that's Ronaldo taking the shots, and you want him.
Yeah, definitely. We focused a bit on that as well on the captaincy video earlier today. Tom had some stats on that. And looking at Ronaldo against Lukaku, Ronaldo actually has the better fixture, even if the fixture ticker may consider Leicester harder. But also that all of the centre backs have gone. I think, haven't they, in that fixture? I'm not sure anyone's got any centre backs left. And they've
from what teams?
Yeah, and they're going to be without. So Ndidi is out as well. Obviously the centre back pairing at Manchester United are out. I mean, it says to me going to be goals. Either that or it's Well, no, it surely must be goals. They haven't got anyone who can defend left.
I mean, my only concern as a United fan, as you can tell, is it's, United haven't been in top form. The crowd will start turning on them if Leicester score. But, you have to back the fact that Leicester have been very leaky and they will come back at some stage. But it's not a team that is high on confidence. That's the only thing.
No, okay. Yeah, I mean, what do you think? I mean, I'm a Greenwood owner. Do you think Greenwood is going to start this one? I mean, Pras, you're a Manchester United fan.
He should. I mean, now he's at the stage where it's anyone's guess because Sancho's looked very good in the friendly. I mean, it was an easy fixture for England, but he looked good, so he could play on the right. Almost definitely, United will play Pogba on the left attack. So that leaves Greenwood fighting it out with Sancho. I mean, if he does start, which I think he will, he should be fine. But I got rid of him on Wildcard. I obviously had him until now, was simply because he's not in the same position, getting those chances which he was.
I should have got rid of him on my Wildcard 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I will keep him for this one. I mean, I'll even take a cameo against Leicester. I'll take anything. But I do think the options are coming back from Manchester United, and when they do gel, they do. I mean, they really do get the points. We've seen it. Rashford, Greenwood, Pogba, whoever they've got up front. So in the past, it's been say Cavani or Martial. Now it's Ronaldo. Fernandes is there. All of them get huge points.
For sure.
So I'm. Yeah, I don't want to stray too far from Manchester United, definitely. Speaking of Manchester City, they're even harder to. Who's going to start for them? Karam, do you want to take us through the Manchester City chat?
Yeah, sure. I've got the team sheet for Saturday. No, I'm joking. No. So Man City embark on a kind run of games, starting with their fixture against Burnley, in which we have some really interesting stats on this one. The last 4 times Man City has hosted Burnley in all competitions, all 4 games ended 5-0. So that screams points and goals for the next game week.
Yeah.
The main question is who starts and who will score the goals. So we've got some community questions on this. Mox81 is asking who are the best attacking City assets to go for. Is it Torres or Mahrez or both for Burnley? KDB, what about him? Is he a good differential punt for this game week? City defense look very impressive as well. Is it Diaz, Cancelo, both of them? Which one to go for? And is there a merit to save money with Kyle Walker and Laporte instead of Diaz and Cancelo? I've got some
stats. This table here. This is minutes per expected goal involvement, and this is for all season. I've got the picture of Mahrez there, and it's amazing, isn't it? Mahrez's stats there if he starts.
If he starts, indeed. So what do you think, Joe, about the fixture? Are you targeting anyone for the next game week?
I've got Cancelo in, and I got Cancelo in last week with this fixture run in mind, including Burnley. He'll probably be benched now, but with Mendy out of the picture, Zinchenko was injured, could be back. Cancelo can play left back or right back. So Walker, you would think it's Walker and Cancelo. One of those might dip out if Zinchenko comes in, but if Zinchenko's not available, I can't see who. It has to be him really. So Cancelo, yes. Mahrez and Torres, if they are in this, I was talking to Tom about this earlier. Whoever's starting in those front 3 positions, basically
open the champagne.
Yeah, just pour yourself some. Turn the TV off. Don't even bother watching it. Just pour the champagne and count the points, which will be coming. It's like no look football watching. You don't even need to look because you know there's gonna be a goal. And you can just, by the time you come back in the evening, you've had a bottle of champagne, And you're looking at 17-point haul from Torres. You're looking at Mahrez. He scored a hat trick. I mean, Karam, you explained Mahrez in this fixture. How many goals has he scored recently against Burnley?
Yeah. So with Riyad Mahrez, he in his Premier League career, he scored 8 goals against against Burnley, in which 7 of them in a City jersey. 6 goals in the last 3 matches he played against Burnley. Interesting about Mahrez against Burnley. He started the last 6 times. He started 6 times of the last 7 he played Burnley. So probably Charlie Tyler's nightmare is Mahrez. And if anything, I think the way he plays, the way he just dominates the right wing, screams him starting against Burnley, regardless whether he's favourable or not.
Now, I noticed this with Pep in the past. He likes certain players in certain fixtures. So-and-so away. Oh, that's a Jesus game. So-and-so at home. Sterling always does. Mahrez against Burnley, that just seems to be the thing, isn't it?
I think one of the 2 fixtures he really likes him is against Burnley and Leicester. For Mahrez. So that's something to consider. Now, the question is he the option now for the next few? Because as a 1-week punt, I think he's one of the best captain options. But can you carry him on for the next few game weeks? And I've got something about the 3 players, Mahrez, Foden, and Torres, and it's inspired by Pras, who created a table. We will share it a little bit later on Chelsea and City. But basically, Mahrez for last season, this is stats from last season. He started 23 games in the Premier League, 11 times on the bench with no cameo, and only 4 times where he came on. So basically, Mahrez gave you the option: he starts or no show, and you get the first sub of the bench. That's not the case this season. I think of the 5 times he got benched, he made 4 cameos. So it's a swap role between him and Torres. So it's something to consider. I think Mahrez last season started more in the Champions League than the Premier League. It seems like he's more prioritized for that, especially the later stages in the knockouts. He played all the knockout games at the expense of the Premier League games. So this is not the case now. We are still in the group stage, so he might get a start. I think with the unlikeliness of Jesus to make the game week 8, that spot is his. Whether you can carry him on, I think when we discuss the rest of the options, I favor someone else over Mahrez on the 3, 4, 5 game weeks fixture.
But for 1 week punt,
for this fixture, I think Mahrez is the one.
So for those that are wildcarding next week and have a place there, a 1 week punt, Mahrez possibly the best one. Pras, are you? You're wildcarding this week, but are you?
I would think so. If I was to say in terms of short-term punts, there's the Brazil factor, right? In addition to Mahrez's great record, the fact that Brazil play 36 hours before the weekend means that you have Jesus missing out, which is great for Mahrez. But I also feel teams can then punt on, dare I say it again, people have been burnt with him, but Torres, because Torres is off the same price point as Rafinha. So this applies to people like me who are wildcarding. If we find out that Rafinha is out for the weekend and you really fancy a punt on Pep Roulette and you want it only for a week, then just, Torres is also a 1 week option. No guarantees that he starts, but might as well roll the dice for the Burnley fixture and then convert him to Rafinha a week later.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I've got Jota, who very likely won't start because Firmino, being Brazilian, but he was actually not in the squad, so he's fit and ready to go. And Jota's got this injury. There's Greenwood as well knocking around, and Sarr, who I actually quite like for this fixture, especially because Liverpool's Brazilian goalkeeper will be absent. So I like Sarr's got a bit of form against Liverpool, so that's worth a go. But if if I am minded to get a midfield, Torres, this just screams a Torres 15, 20 pointer, and he'll get nothing forevermore. But it's just a case of, do I want to be lumbered with him, as many people were after his 17 points? And I think it's long-term thinking. I don't think I can, but if it was a 1 week punt, Mahrez or Torres, Jesus not playing, I like this.
Yeah. I think for the next three, let's talk about a range of game weeks. To me, I would actually consider Torres over Mahrez.
Okay.
And the reason for that is basically he is currently playing really well with Spain, and he scored a couple of goals in the Nations League as well this week as a number 9. So he was deployed by Luis Enrique exactly as Pep wants him to be in the semifinals against who did they play? Italy, right? That was not the case. I think in the final he was a bit more wide, but even Enrique is observing what Pep is trying to do with Torres. And I think with Mahrez nailing that spot, because Jesus is probably not an option in Gameweek 8, that central forward is going to be really between Torres and Sterling. And I just feel like Torres has a better feeling to the goal and as a striker than Sterling. In a game like Burnley, this is the game where we don't need a false 9. Granted, Pep will do that next weekend. But I think Torres for last season, he was more used in the Premier League than the Champions League. Over the 13 games in the Champions League, he started only 4. And he was on the bench with no Cameo in 7 of those. He didn't play almost anything in the knockouts of the Champions League, but he used to get the Premier League games. He had 14 stars last season, in which it's really similar to Foden, who had 17 stars. So there is no much difference between the number of stars between Foden and Torres. And the thing about Torres, he doesn't give you a lot of cameos as well. So he is also another option where he starts or he's a no-show. And we've seen that in this season. He started the first 3 and he never touched the grass in the last 4 game weeks for different reasons. I think now we will see more pattern. It's not like before the international break, because we play Champions League, we play the cups every midweek until the next international break. So there should be rotation, surely. And I think with that price, you can digest the rotation more than Mahrez at 8.7 now. I started with Mahrez and I got the goal against Norwich as a captain, where people, I think, Captain Salah, and he didn't return. So I got a bit of an advantage, but it was painful. And I was in a situation where I don't have a strong bench to cover that. But with Torres, you have that 1.5 million more where you can afford to punt on him.
I actually think,
with Livramento.
Yeah, I actually think for those who are wildcarding, because when you are wildcarding, your bench is set up well. And I think if you are, we'll come to this in a second, how many risks is too many risks. But I think Torres is a great risk and a placeholder for Rafinha. Just a very similar price. He's a bit more, so he gives you time. And if not, well, then presumably on the bench is the likes of Christensen, Livramento, Duffy, whoever. Ben White. These are the sorts of bench players that wildcarders are having, all with great fixtures coming up. I was looking at the lineups of the last couple of meetings between City and Burnley, 2 of the many 5-0 drubbings. And it was Ederson in goal, and Walker, Stones, Diaz. And Diaz was replaced by Garcia in the 70th minute. Mendy, who's out of the picture now. Rodri replaced with Fernandinho. Gundogan, Mahrez, De Bruyne, who was like a number 10. Torres, who was out on the left. Mahrez obviously was on the right, and up front was Gabriel. It was Jesus. So obviously it's different now. Jesus is now on the right, and up front it's more likely to be Foden, KDB, Torres, whoever.
Yeah.
And then on the left it's Grealish. Grealish is the main man out there, so it's a slightly different. But he trusted Torres to start in this game, and Foden came on for him. Meanwhile, and Mahrez obviously. Mahrez got a hat-trick in that game. And then in the previous one, which is June 2020, It was Foden and Mahrez both got braces. Now it was Foden that started that one. And it was Sané, remember him? Replaced him for the last 10 minutes or so. Aguero was back playing them, replaced with Jesus. Mahrez was playing, he started, did well, got a brace, and it was De Bruyne that replaced him. I think the point is, it's impossible to say who's going to start, and you've got to be prepared for that and roll the dice. I'm not that kind of manager, but if I was, as I said, whoever is in that lineup, that attacking three, will get you points. But who is it? Come on then. Who's going to start? Who? You know, a metaphorical FPL gun to our heads. Who will be that front three?
I would say, let me see something about the England lineup. Oh, okay, both Sterling and Grealish play. Now, I would say Mahrez on the right, Torres as a number 9, and Grealish on the left.
Okay.
And there is a case for Foden that he is really prioritized for Champions League more than the Premier League. Okay. And with 2 starts with England, I don't see him starting. Sorry, Pras. Spoiler to the Wildcard.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that Mahrez and Torres will be slightly better options than Foden. When in the second part of the season, especially in the Champions League, Foden has played nearly every minute of the Champions League and nearly nothing in the Premier League. And that's, I think, how good he is for us, that Pep wants to use him in the Champions League. So Foden, he has the higher possibility to play in the Champions League rather than the Premier League. However, he is being deployed in the middle, which could be a great option for him as well to get more minutes than just being on the wing. He played with England against Andorra as well in the same role, and he impressed really. So there might be a chance where he gets more minutes as a double 8 with KDB perhaps, rather than on the wings. His price is still affordable at 7.8. So coming back to the main questions.
We're going to come to your wildcard latest in a minute, Pras. And I know you've got some sort of deliberate differentials in there to help the debate and discussion along. But is Foden genuinely in your thoughts, and has Karam put you off?
Well, not really, because I think a lot of the discussion, a lot of the discussion we're having is a little bit short-term focused. So we're looking at Burnley as the next fixture, maybe the next couple. Of course, on Wildcard, you're looking for long-term, and you know one of the biggest advice with Pep Roulette is don't just go for the next fixture. Pep doesn't just look at rest as the only criteria to pick a team. It's got to do with tactics, who's the right person. So, you know, stick it out. I think that would be one thing. And if you're looking at long-term, I mean, there's a couple of guys we haven't talked about. I mean, Grealish has started 7 out of 7. KDB is, you know, we know from past seasons, he's the go-to guy. So if we think of long-term, and let me make a case for Foden here. I mean, I do agree that, you know, he's at risk maybe of Burnley. But do I care on Wildcard with that team? I don't mind a Cameo. My thinking is he's much more integral to the team. He can play 4 positions, you know, the second number 8. He can play on the left, on the right as a false 9. He's just a more important member of the team. So if I'm getting that for 7.9, 7.8, which we thought Grealish was a couple of weeks ago, I'm interested. And it was a decision between Grealish and Foden and which one do I want on it, because I think both of them should get a lot of minutes. Whether they start on, you know, Burnley or not is sort of secondary for me. I mean, I think on a wild card, this is why I think I'm pretty set on either a Foden or a Grealish, at least a City mid that I, you know, can tap that in the next few weeks.
What about De Bruyne though? Because with De Bruyne, it's more about his price really. I mean, obviously, you know, if you could get De Bruyne in, it'd be a, you know, great asset to have. But for those who definitely want Salah, you definitely want a premium striker. In most cases, going to be Lukaku. I mean, De Bruyne just doesn't fit in. I mean, as you've been wildcarding, have you tried to get him in and then thought this isn't going to work out?
Look, I mean, I think it came down to do I want Lukaku or KDB? But to be honest, had he shown the signs that he showed last year, he would have forced us to do that. But he's looked a little bit slower. I mean, Karam, you watch their games. What is it about KDB that, you know, as somebody who doesn't follow City, is just not feeling it with KDB? Is that something that the fans are feeling as well?
If you mean this season, I think he is just I think he's still recovering from an ankle injury that he picked up during the Euros, and he's been managed with the minutes. And I think a couple of times he had a bit of setbacks. However, in this international break, I think there are still some people think that KDB didn't play his best, but half of his best was 2 great assists against France. And I think that's what he is capable of. He is capable of assists, but at the 12 million, and 11.5 last season, he was a good option for Mr. Assist with penalties. I think him being off penalties, and it's a good opportunity to answer some question on the chat who is asking about who is a pen taker for City. Since he is off the penalties for Mahrez, who is the first choice now, I don't think he brings that enough value. I like him, and I might one day of the season bring him just because I love him. But is he the best value player that you will offer or you will get from City? Probably not, with the options that you have for Torres, Mahrez, unless it's a double game week and you need to really maximize on this. I think that's where KDB is a great option.
So who is on penalties if Mahrez isn't on the pitch?
Ooh, I can't remember this. I'm trying to remember, actually.
I mean, I'm not even sure Man City knows.
I mean, maybe Grealish, but Grealish wasn't even on them
No, he wasn't even on the Villa. He was on them for a tiny bit, but not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Jesus, but he's not going to be on the pitch either. Torres? Is Torres?
No, I remember. I have a feeling that there was a pen where Mahrez was not on the pitch, but as we go along, I can figure this out. See if someone.
We'll have a look into that. So, I mean, obviously, you know the risks you're going to be taking, and that's the subject of what Pras wants to talk about, because this is sort of further chat from our Wildcard chat on the Meet the Manager video from last week, and I do urge people to have a look at that. It's on the YouTube channel that you're watching this now on. Or if you're listening to the podcast version, go to the YouTube channel and you will see it on there, Praz's Meet the Manager. But this follows on about essentially this question, isn't it, of how many risks is too many risks. So Praz, I've got as you talk, I've got something you sent to me, which is your table of rarely cameoing and cameoing a lot. So I'll put that up and you can tell us what's that about.
Sure. So when we were thinking about this question on who are the risky picks on Wildcard, what do we really mean by risky? I mean, there's basically high upside but not nailed. But not nailed is not nuanced enough. So what I went and did was I said, does this player actually start? And if he doesn't start, does he come on? So that's the cameo bit. And I went through all the appearances they've had last season and the season so far. And I looked at the number of times that they came on. And what I'm trying to decipher is he nailed? So I'm going to go through all these players who we think are fairly risky. We're going to decipher, do we think he's nailed? If he's not nailed, can we mitigate that risk with a good substitute on our bench? And if he does cameo, is he still worth it compared to other nailed options in that bracket? So let me talk about the first two. And you see there are two categories here, which is the rarely cameo. And these are guys, everything under 15%. So, basically 1 in 10 times approximately they would come on. 1 in 10 times they would actually have a cameo. Otherwise, you get their points or you don't get their points. So these are safe guys who you can have in your team. And if they don't start, you can have a substitute and rest.
Hey, I've got 2 of them. So I feel good.
And by the way, the gold standard here is Salah. For me, or for the whole community, he's the guy who we called nailed, who plays for a top 4 team, has Champions League midweek, but yet continues to start week in, week out. So for reference, he had 38 appearances and 3 of them were cameos. So that's about 8%. So that's basically a gold standard. So if I look at the rarely cameo guys, I mean, these are largely defenders, KDB. Some of the names that stood out were Walker and Laporte. I mean, not many people talked about these two as options in City's defense. But if you think about it, I mean, Laporte last season was slightly different in the sense that Stones was the more nailed guy This season, Laporte seems to have, the second spot at centre back. And the good thing is, if he doesn't come on, keep a Livramento, keep a Mbeumo, and they come on instead. So there is very little risk in going for somebody like him. I think number one thing that comes out is Diaz is not a risk. I think we can eliminate that from this list. Cancelo, Azpilicueta, Walker, and KDB are also very, very low risk, both in terms of the number of starts as well as cameos. So for me, this category, this first bucket, what it's telling me is there are certain people like Laporte I mentioned, Christensen I mentioned, Chilwell is another interesting one. I mean, these guys are sort of, either play or they don't come on. So they're rested. These are not the high impact guys, although Chilwell did stand out as maybe he would come on for Alonso, but actually he hasn't ever come on in the last, since 2018 season. So these are guys who you can fairly, you can never be risk free, but you can sit easy.
So with Chilwell and Alonso, it's either Alonso or Chilwell. It's not a case of 60th minute, off you get Alonso, Chilwell, come on. It's not. He just sticks with it, whoever he's picked.
Correct. That's what we've seen so far.
I can give a bit of insight into Christensen here. So I've owned him for three or four game weeks. And he has returned consistently for me without actually being on the pitch. And that is because he got me a clean sheet when he played. There was one time he played, he got me 1 point. And the other two times he didn't play. But Livramento came on. And Livramento, 6 points and 4 points. So, in essence, he's returning for me way more often than his quite low price tag there. So, I feel pleased about having him. And one of the reasons I got Cancelo in was not just because he just looks a very exciting player as well, but it's just choices as well. So he can play on both flanks. Walker's there. He's not competing, so on different flanks. Zinchenko he's competing with. So I thought, well, okay, we're competing with Zinchenko. Zinchenko's going to get the odd match, but Cancelo may move and replace Walker then.
Right.
And it's with Mendy out of the picture. And they haven't replaced in that role. It's fantastic. So I think Cancelo is... it's good to see him there. And I think those that have got Azpilicueta, Diaz, Chilwell in this can sleep easy. What's interesting, I think, is Walker and Laporte. I think they're quite... Because they're a little bit cheaper than some of the other options. But you can, like I'm getting with Christensen, they're just going to play or they're not going to play.
Correct. So it's a little bit of change in mindset in terms of risk profile. People sort of... I'll come to the more risky players in a second, but people sort of, for example, bucket James and Chilwell as similar players, similar risk, because they're both wing backs at Chelsea, but they're actually very different. You could have a Chilwell and a Livramento who could do much better than any other any other defender.
That's a great combination, isn't it?
Yeah, and a James you could get stuck with a lot of cameos, but we'll come to that in a second. But Karam, you had a point, and does this sort of resonate at least on the City side with you in terms of nailedness and riskiness?
Yeah, as I said in the beginning of the Scoutcast, I loved the table when I saw it. Definitely changed a bit of how I look at certain players, especially Cancelo. One of the reasons I probably didn't own last season is basically, what if he's get benched and never show up? No, this table says something different. My only reservation is about Laporte. Basically, for the next few, as we see in the table, and probably we know, Diaz is undroppable, right? And that leaves one centre-back option. With a game every 3 days now, it's really easy that Laporte does not play at all in the Premier League for the next 4 game weeks, and Stones does, or the vice versa. So if I am on a wild card in game week 9, not 8, it will be easier for me to decide, do I want Stones or Laporte? Because maybe I can find a pattern where Pep will have an easy decision to make. Okay, you play the weekend, you play the midweek. What I like about those players is basically a 1 time off or a 2 times off in the midterm. But if I get someone of them and never shows up, it takes away a bit for the main reason why I'm going for them, because of the fixtures, right? So in a way, this table will allow me to digest some of the no-shows And that's something that happened actually with Torres, as we grow a lot in the next table. He didn't have any cameo this season, in which I benefited once when Livramento with 5-pointer came off the bench, rather than having someone like Foden, for example, who might come on and keep that return on the bench. So I think with those players, the rest of the players, I totally agree, and I like how things are looking here. And it makes me think, well, Cancelo and Diaz, nothing much between them in terms of stars versus cameo risk. I would rather have Cancelo based on this table.
So what about this cameo a lot? So this is for the Mavericks. Because
this table comes with a health warning. So basically what this says is, look, you're getting the guy and he's going to play. Whether he starts or not, he's going to come on. So if you don't see him in the lineup, don't pray for your 6-pointer from Livramento. He is going to come on. So that's basically the idea here. Now, that is not to say, I should say up front, that we should stay away from these guys. What I'm trying to say with this table is that these are guys who you have to treat them on the same pedestal as the nailed players. So you have to compare a James, we'll come to that table in a second, but you have to compare a James with a Rudiger. And don't look at James's per minute stats. Look at his overall game stats, because it doesn't matter, because James could come on for 15 minutes and show a terrific XA. But, because he's going to keep cameoing, you have to count that as your whole game week score, if you see what I mean. And so you have to look at it as, I'm going for this risky player and I'm going to hold him over a period of 15 weeks. If I think that James can, over this 15 weeks, maybe get 10 starts, 5 cameos, and that is enough in terms of the clean sheets he gets, and the missed games, he will get the assists to make up for it, then go for James over Rudiger. Same thing. I mean, I've compared, for example, a Jesus to an Antonio. I mean, you could, for example, think Antonio has very tough fixtures, go for Jesus instead, but he will come on in games, so you won't get that cushion. So you're basically looking at Jesus over, he'd have to go an 8-pointer, 1-pointer, 9-pointer, 2-pointer for you to make up for an Antonio 6-6-6-6. And if you think that is still a higher number, go for the risky guy. And that's what I was trying to show with this slide.
I think, I mean, in terms of taking a gamble on a City asset, so what they're saying is there's been a real shift between Torres and Mahrez in terms of being subbed on and off. So we can see here that the previous season, Torres 38% of the times cameoed. This season he hasn't cameoed once. He's either on or he's not. Mahrez only 15%, so it was either Mahrez or not. Now it's 80%. You're going to see some Mahrez, but you might only see 10 minutes of Mahrez. I mean, I've got one player. Well, this probably shows the type of manager I am, quite a safe manager, because I've only got one player on this list, and that's Jota. And I have often said with Jota, I don't mind if he cameos. With teams like Liverpool, Manchester United as well, but especially Liverpool, I quite like to have an attack in the last 20 minutes. That's when the opposition are knackered and when these guys are steaming on. So I guess that's another element. And I guess people who own the Chelsea assets and the Manchester City assets will probably have the same thing. It's like with Foden. Most people would probably take 20 minutes of Foden against Burnley, wouldn't they? I think, yeah. But, yeah, having said that, I'll probably get rid of Jota because he's injured. But if he's not injured, I'm going to play him against Watford because I will take 20 minutes of Jota against Watford. Should we have a look at... No, before we look at your wildcard team, Pras, you've got another table here. I put it in my notes here. Pras... Cameos, colours. So this is coloured. So why are these players on this list? And what do they signify? And what do the colours signify?
Right. So this is basically as I said, if we're looking to go risky, and this is the riskiest bracket, you have to essentially compare each of these players with their main nailed competitor. Okay. So what you see on the right is same price point, another guy who is much more nailed. And I'm essentially trying to show, what do you believe? And I said this with James. So if you think James will get more assists to make up for the missed clean sheets, pick James over Rudiger. And I've got a yellow here, which I'll come to, where essentially means I'm unsure if that is the case.
Okay.
But then let's compare Foden versus Bamford or Jota versus a Bamford and DCL. And why I've compared this midfielder with an attacker is, frankly, we don't have any options, any reasonable options in the 7.5 to 8.5 bracket that are nailed at this stage. This is where we are in the FPL sphere at the moment. So, you can think of a change in formation where you have a Bamford as the third striker instead of a Foden as your third midfielder. So what I'm trying to say is, here, if you feel that Leeds are not in form, Foden will have 3 out of 4 games where he starts, 1 he cameos. If you believe that his stats, and they have shown to be the case over the last couple of games, if that continues, then go for Foden. You don't have to be the safe pick, Bamford pick. Go for Foden. The other guys in this category, obviously Jota and Foden go hand in hand. I think you go for a similar priced player in your position. Torres, we talked about. I mean, for him, the nailed competition is Rafinha and Saka. I mean, you could make a case for having both plus Torres, but it's just something to show. Mahrez, there's not a lot in that price bracket, as I mentioned. So I've used Son as one, and in this case, I've put it as red, is because I don't think over the 6-game week period, Mahrez can match Son with those cameos. And then an interesting one is Hwang. I mean, we've seen Hwang come up in a lot of drafts recently because of the fact that he's turning all these chances that Traore missed in the first few game weeks. He started and bang, he scored. So people, if you believe he's going to be a starter, that's fair enough. But if I go with what we've seen so far, he's got competition from Traore, from Podence, then he will cameo. Maybe he'll play 2, maybe cameo. So you have to compare him with a Tony who's going to play 90 minutes on penalties. If you believe he outscores him, then go for Hwang. It's a risk. It's a risk worth taking. Otherwise, don't.
Yeah, I mean, with Hwang, I was noticing that you've got the sort of big guy, small guy thing going on with Jimenez, and holding the ball up, being a nuisance. Hwang moves in, which is what I thought Traore would be doing, which is why I got him in on my wildcard. So I've promptly got rid of him. But as you said, one thing I have noticed owning Wolves players this season is it's around the 60-70 minute mark. It's this spot that Hwang's got where he will either come on or he'll be taken off. And so you're not going to get your 90 minutes there. You're going to get 60 or 70, and that's the one that's at risk. But as you said, it's £1 million cheaper, million or so. No, actually, it's 7.7 cheaper than Tony. And if you think that there's going to be more explosive returns there, it's worth getting. And it depends what you can do with that 0.7 there.
True.
There are options, but yeah, it is interesting there. It's also interesting for me as a Jota owner, but also I'm not wildcarding, but also looking at perhaps alternatives I might be forced to. It's actually Rafinha would be, but he's probably not going to be playing unless he's, well, I don't know. You never know. He is superhuman. He'll just get off the flight literally and just run onto the pitch straight from the plane, on the touchline. But it's Saka.
That's a quick anyway.
Yeah, it's Saka at 6.3. It's a player he's essentially my Sarr replacement, but I'm going to keep Sarr, and I think Saka's the one I like because, as you said, he's nailed on. He can get explosive returns. He might get me 3 points some weeks. Arsenal have good fixtures. He's looking great in Arsenal setup. I think Saka's top of my shopping list at the moment. But what's interesting about this list is it shows, the range of different attitudes to the game. So if you've got an stronger attitude to risk, you can look at Foden. If you haven't, maybe think of rearranging and look to getting that money up front to a third striker, and so on. I like this list. It's good, but we should do this more. This should become a regular thing. Update every 4 weeks or so. But yeah, I like this. Yeah, Karam, there's a lot of midfielders here, but are you looking at this in terms of any midfielders? In terms of I'll get the nailed on option, or I'm going to roll the dice with the Cameo guy.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I really like how things are going with this section, which raises the question: is how many of them can we afford to have? Certainly, every one of us has a maximum of 3 bench players, probably 2 if the third one does not play. So to me, I like to draw some risky options. Not always they work out, But I still feel that it's always worth a go. Question is, how many of them can I go with? I would say from the previous table, I like to go for one, maximum two.
Yeah.
And if I go for two risky players, I'll make sure that at least one of them is not a rarely Cameo player, because I don't want to end up almost every week having to use two of my bench, which probably would be Alan and Livramento. Probably one is good. So if anything, I might go for something like, I don't remember the exact table anymore, but I think Torres is a rarely Cameo this season, so he might be the one I use. And someone else who with a lot of cameos, someone from the Chelsea or a Jota. Jota is someone I feel he is Cameo a lot category.
Yeah.
When fixtures improve, when he's in form, and so we talk about Jota. 20-30 minutes of him, he is still a decent option. So I can afford going for something like Torres and Jota instead of going for two players who will really come on off the bench. But generally speaking, these options and these kind of price points are really nice for these players, because when you are fed up or the fixtures there, you can move on to some other players, the likes of Rafinha or Saka or Sarr. These kind of players you can afford. So yeah, that's my view on it.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I would say to your point, sorry, Joe, I was only that I think the point of the second bucket is we don't have to worry about the bench much at all. So we have to worry about the bench for the first piece of the risky players, but the second ones, we almost have to look at James as a Rudiger. Same thing.
Yeah.
But do you believe that he scores more points or not?
Yeah. So, I mean, bearing that in mind, go back to the original question of how many risks is too many risks. So, in terms of how many... Well, let's put your wildcard team up, and you can take us through the players and also assess this. So we've arranged this as if you're playing this in Gameweek 8. So we've got Salah captain there, and we've got the subs there. So take us through this team with a special focus really on whether they cameo a lot, don't cameo, whether they're safe to play to start, or whether they're placed at risk, and if so, someone might come on. So yeah, take us through this team.
So first, I mean, before I start, in terms of my, I've created this for the purpose of, this risk assessment. The first feedback I get from this is, five defenders, too big at the back, too much money on the bench. But that's exactly the point. That's what I'm trying to show, that in this draft, I've got 6 players from the 2 risky teams. So you've got 3 Chelsea, 3 City, which basically everyone looks at and says, that's too risky. I'm going to show why it's not so risky based on what I had shown in the table before. I've got in defense TAA, who we know will play, Diaz, who we have shown will play pretty much every game. And then you have Cancelo, Chilwell, and Christensen. These are all the 3 guys who we deem as risky, but are, the guys who rarely cameo. So I've got 5 defenders in there who, when you play, you trust that either they start or they don't come on. So there's a little bit of a safety here. There's no cameos here. So what that means is you've got to have a good bench. And in this setup, let's say I start all 5 defenders on every week. I've lost my fag in the back, sorry. If I start the 5 defenders every week, or in this case, as you've shown, I've got Christensen on the first bench, then you've got Mbeumo as the first sub, and you've got Hwang as the second sub, either way. And in the midfield, you have Foden, Rafinha, and Salah. And for me, because Foden is the high risk category of will always cameo, I don't need to worry about the fact that I need to have a substitute for him. So my 5 defenders have a cover of 2 subs. There's a Foden in there in the midfield who will likely cameo anyway. So you've got one very risky player. You have Antonio up top, Lukaku up top, again, dependable guys who should play. And then a Hwang as another one who I think will cameo. So this is a draft with 3 risky players who are not likely to cameo, which is Cancelo, Christensen, and Chilwell. And 2 risky players who will cameo, Foden and Hwang. And I think 2 bench players, which is Mbeumo and Hwang, can cover that risk And that's where I'm trying to go with it. And you know, I'll come to my own wildcard thoughts if I was going with this. I probably won't go with this, but this is what I would do if I was to jam as much risk as possible.
No, it's good. It's good you did that. I did that with my wildcard on the Scoutcast. It's not exactly what you're going to go with, but it just helps the discussion with this. Well, let's sort of have a look at the sort of stress test it. So Alexander Arnold is going to start. Diaz, you would imagine he's going to start. So then Cancelo or Chilwell might not start. So you've got these two iffy ones. Now, as we've seen, they're not going to cameo. So Christensen could come in. So Christensen might not come in. So you're going to be very, very, very unfortunate for Chilwell, Cancelo and Christensen to all be benched. It's possible. Can happen. But it would be very, very unfortunate for that to happen. So that's a very small risk, I would say. You're going to get at least 3 out there. Meanwhile, you've got Mbomo to fill in for Hwang, perhaps, or to fill in for one of those defenders. And I guess out of all of them, it's just Brownhill is sort of your 2-point man, but you never know. But at least he plays, he starts. I mean, I've got Sissoko in mine. I mean, he's just a 2-point guy, just in there to be cheap. But yeah, look at that. Say Foden doesn't. I think you'd have to be really unlucky. For, as you said, Foden does actually come on and cameo. Hwang will come on and cameo, or he'll start. So I guess it's only really looking at Chilwell. It's only Chilwell, really, and Christensen.
I actually have a little bit different feeling about this team. I think, to me, this team is a bit more riskier than what you both described. I think even with compared to the table, Foden, when he cameos a lot, he cameos at 33%, which is 1 in 3. Yeah. So there is also 66% chance that he will not come on. Same goes with the Chilwell. Cancelo is safe, risky safe type of player. But as you said, Joe, you need to be really unlucky. But let's say that day comes, then you might end up with no Chilwell, no Cancelo, a pointer from Foden, at worst case scenario, and you will have to ask Brownhill to get a screamer on that game to get his points. So in a way, you feel but still you feel like you are getting a 1.5 player of the 3, if Christensen also misses out for Thiago Silva, which can easily happen. We've seen that odd no-show. To me, this team is really, really nice. I think it's one more player risky than I would initially try and go for. I think one less player and the team looks perfect.
So we're talking Chilwell, Christensen, Hwang. So that's just... and Foden, so that's 4 risks. So Pras is 4
and Brownhill.
Yeah. So to Pras, do you think that 4 or 3 is 3 risky players the optimal to go for?
I think 3 would be the one that I would go for. So if I was to tell you where I am at this stage, if I wasn't putting this risky team out there, I would probably downgrade Christensen to Livramento. So you have one more solid bench option. Do you use that 0.7 and you upgrade Hwang to Tony? And basically you've taken away the Christensen risk with a nailed, maybe not as big of a clean sheet potential as Christensen, but a good option in Livramento. And you've changed Hwang to a Tony. And suddenly now you have a good back line with a very good Chilwell to Livramento sub whenever needed. And you have a Tony who basically you'll probably never have to need a sub for.
Yeah, I mean, so I've got Christensen, but I've also got Livramento. And as I've explained, that Livramento comes on for Christensen. And same principle there with Chilwell, if you can go up to that level. I think that's a really wise move. So Christensen would be Livramento in this setup. And essentially Foden would just be your guy who you might get 10 minutes or you might get a start. And that's minimised the risk as well. It's funny because in the chat people say, double Chelsea defence or double... I mean, even going Chilwell and Christensen isn't that bad. It's just... It's just Livramento actually gives you that little bit more security of starts at the moment.
I think this team is really strong. One thing to add on this is I think it needs a bit more, a stronger mentality to deal with some certain game weeks. This team can score 30 points over the average, but also can barely get you to the average. So it's if you are strong enough mentally to deal with some bad game weeks, I think this team is really good and strong enough to carry on for the near future.
So it's good to see Alexander Arnold there. We've had news in today to timestamp this is being streamed on Tuesday, that it looks like he's fit and ready to go against Watford. Great. There will be people who wildcarded last week to wildcard, not to wildcard Alexander Arnold out, but their wildcard would have included Alexander Arnold out to spread that funds around. Or as someone in previous season who has removed Alexander Arnold, I would never ever advise doing that. He's expensive. He's almost impossible to get back in without hits. He's just not the move you want to do. So, for example, I booked in Ronaldo to Lukaku. That's fine. I've got $1 million in the bank. I don't have to worry about price rises or anything. I don't have to commit any surgery for that. Many people will be in that position. But you try getting Alexander Arnold in. I mean, it's just impossible until... And you don't really want to make a move for a defender as well. So there will be people who are making that decision. Just so we can put this to bed. Should people just get Alexander Arnold in if they can? And if they can't, should they just give up?
I mean, you could make a case for if they've sold him pre-international break, don't have a wild card. If you have to do major surgery, just wait it out for another 3 games. Maybe wait for the United game and just pray in the Watford game. I mean, let's play devil's advocate. In other seasons, there were no other standout, stellar defensive options. Now you have City, who barely concede a big chance a game. You have Chelsea. So I am never going to advocate not going Alexander Arnold. I think the game is complicated enough that you have some glue guys and you stick to the glue guys. Yeah. But if there are others who are stuck in a boat where you have to, go for a -12 to get him back, just then hold off.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just say, he's in your team, Karam, isn't he? Alexander Arnold?
Trent. Yeah. I kept him on the bench.
One of those moments where you think you've made a sort of a social blunder where you just basically, luckily, I haven't. Let's move on, have a look at the next 4 fixtures just to see how this sort of wildcard setup would survive. So we can see why there's a focus on Chelsea. Chelsea are top. They got Brentford, Norwich, Newcastle, Burnley. I'm looking at that, and it's game week 9 really, where I'm looking at Chelsea's really good run. I think Norwich at home and then Newcastle and Burnley is fantastic. So I want Lukaku for that, or Werner or whoever, but I definitely want more Chelsea. Southampton, I've double Chelsea, double Southampton rather at the moment. With Livramento and Armstrong ready for Leeds, Burnley, Watford and Villa. Then Leeds themselves. Now Rafinha would be my top choice to bring in, but I don't think he's going to be back because he plays about a minute for Brazil, about a minute before he's due to come on for Leeds. But Leeds have Southampton, Wolves, Norwich and Leicester. Arsenal, great fixtures, Crystal Palace, Villa, then Leicester and Watford. So Arsenal, this is why Saka is realistically top of my list. Hope he's safe tonight when he plays for England. Everton, still good fixtures. They've got West Ham and then got Watford, Wolves and Tottenham. Now an easy fixture. And Brentford, they got Chelsea, but gets better with Leicester. And then game week 10, it really gets better. They got Burnley and Norwich, and it's a really fine run that starts there. Wolves, their amazingly long run of good fixtures. This is why Hwang is in people's thoughts. Jimenez as well, we haven't mentioned him yet. Also another strong option. Villa, Leeds, Everton and Crystal Palace. But looking a bit further down, Man City, we can see there they got Burnley, Brighton and Crystal Palace before Manchester United. But further down we can see where Manchester United's fixtures stiffen, so do just West Ham's. Burnley's a bit mixed. Watford's get pretty bad as well. Tottenham, great. Newcastle, then it's just really bad fixtures. Newcastle, actually quite, not too bad. Tottenham, Crystal Palace. Then Chelsea's bad and Brighton. So a bit, half good, half bad. And Liverpool, I don't know if Liverpool, whether it matters where Liverpool are on this. But anyway, they got Watford, Manchester United, Brighton and West Ham. Out of all of those, obviously Brighton is the only tough one. And I mean that genuinely. I'm not just joking as a Brighton fan. That genuinely is a game now where Liverpool may not score a hatful. But looking at this, any just general thoughts about next 4 fixtures coming up in terms of players to target?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea top of the table, that brings good feeling, of course. In my case, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my team dominates the top 4 for the fixture list. So that's good sign that I'm sort of set up really nicely. Chelsea at the moment, I do have 2 players, Rudiger and Lukaku, after selling Ronaldo. So maybe I'll try and get a third one because the fixtures are too good. I think they can keep up to 4 clean sheets next 4. So a double defense is a good play. I think. Yeah. Southampton, I'm happy to either start Livramento or keep him first sub for these game weeks. He can always come on. He is, I think, for the next 3, he's a perfect guy for your Man City mid if he gets a no cameo. We spoke about a really cameo guy, like someone who, like a Torres. To me, I feel like Torres Livramento gives you something like Burnley and Watford, perhaps, if he doesn't play. So that's really decent. With Leeds United, I wonder about the Southampton game because Rafinha might make it, might not. But generally speaking, the run looks pretty good. Man United is bottom of the list, which aligns with my mood because I got rid of Luke Shaw a couple of game weeks ago and Ronaldo last game week. I generally think that they will pull some results and some points will be scored by their assets, especially Ronaldo. But I don't think he will outscore Lukaku next 4. So in a way, I feel like I'm okay. I think I will survive the next 4. Liverpool looks a bit mid-table, but it's Liverpool. They are good this season.
That's what I mean. Does it really matter where they are on here?
No, exactly.
Pras, as a Manchester United fan there, I look at those fixtures there and I think if I had Shaw, I'd probably keep him because historically Manchester United shut up shop against these types of teams.
Absolutely, and you've got a nailed player. We'll play Fred and McTominay in the middle. Try to work off the counter. We're definitely more solid, but I think the caveat is Varane of the friendly is injured for a few weeks. And Maguire isn't fit either, so it's a tough one. If you can, I think I would. Now I'm at a place where we could, but United will be tight in these games.
I think what you just said there is more reason to not get Shaw rather than what we're looking at here with the fixtures.
Correct.
I think these fixtures are good for their defence. It's just the fact they haven't got any defenders left because they're all injured. But nevertheless, I think Karam's right as well. There could be some results there. Because there's played. I mean, Ronaldo has had his rest. I think there was someone was saying that for Juventus, he didn't play 3 games within a week. So there's midweek weekend.
390 minutes.
Yeah, he didn't do 390 minutes. So he was about to, and so he didn't. And so it sounded like it was a sort of a pre-arranged rest of sort of I'll play half the game or 30 minutes. Right. There's a feeling that it was Ronaldo's decision rather than Solskjaer's.
I mean, there's also Cavani's ego to manage, right? I mean, he's got a new contract in the summer. He gave up his shirt, shirt number. He will have to play at some point. But yes, we know that Ronaldo will play the majority. But by the way, who knows if Lukaku doesn't miss out? I mean, I don't want to create rumors here, but nobody. I mean, Thomas Tuchel has. You never know. I mean, between Champions League games, can you rule out him playing 90 minutes every game? It can't happen.
Scenes when he benches them against Norwich in Gameweek 9.
That would be. I mean, every week's peak FPL, but peak FPL is Lukaku benched and somehow Salah is as well. so everyone's vice captain.
And Werner hat-trick, and all what we talked about is in the air.
And then I'll just forget all the things I've done, and I'll just say, hey, remember when I said get Werner in?
Yeah, we told you.
The game that the Klopp always says, basically the game managers hate, is playing on a Wednesday, which Chelsea do before Norwich, and the game is on a Saturday lunchtime. So it's actually the right recipe without spreading further rumors or speculation. But it's not ideal.
Oh no. Let's quickly pick some differentials. Karam, I pretty much know your one. Who is it? Who's the best differential this week?
Surprise. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Riyad Mahrez.
Of course.
Just because I think he will start the next one, probably the next one. I don't know. I think at this price is hard to get him in, and that's why it makes him really nice differential at 8.7, 2.4% ownership. He loves Burnley, so I don't mind if he scores 20 points against Burnley and Livramento comes on the next two. For me, it's just fine.
I think it's the ultimate Maverick move is to get Mahrez in and captain him. We're doing rough with the smooth next week. He's been back again. Let's hear those Mahrez. How you got your 34 points and Salah blanked and
another 500 likes for Mahrez -8 or something.
And he shot up into the top 10. That's what we want to hear next week.
Either rough or the smooth one way.
Yeah, it's going to be rough with the smooth. I've just done the positive bit. Yeah, it could be a horror show. Pras, who is your differential under 5% owned next 4 game weeks?
So I'm going with Ollie Watkins. I mean, he's not somebody we talked about too much, but in the forwards discussion, I mean, I was very surprised to see with their fixtures. They played Chelsea, Everton, United, Spurs. He's still third for shots in the box, third for big chances, just behind Ronaldo and Vardy. He's doing well. I mean, he's the furthest forward for Villa. Villa's looking good since they've moved to a back 5. He's got an XGI of almost 2, which is more than Jimenez, Grealish. It's on par with Rafinha. So he's doing well. I mean, he's not the top of the fixture ticker, but I don't think Villa are a side that, even with mid teams, they do fine. And I expect him to do well. So,
I mean, as you've been talking, I've put the goals imminent table back on there. There he is in 4th place there, 11 goal attempts, 9 inside the box, 5 on target. Expected goal non-penalty of 1.78. These are good stats, and they've got good fixtures. Yeah, I think he's good.
I've got on my wildcard, one of those overthinking versions.
Yeah.
I've downgraded Foden to Torres, so I've taken the million. And I've upgraded Tony to Watkins.
Wow,
so there is a version with that.
Sounds good.
But we shall see.
So I have. I'm going to pick Adam Armstrong. I'm going to stick with him. I've got him in my team, and I'm looking at fixtures as well as form. He's due a goal according to my goals imminent table. He's just below Watkins there. 11 goal attempts, 6 inside the box, 4 on target. The expected goal metrics don't like him at the moment, but. Oh dear, how sad. I'm more of an analog guy, so this newfangled digital XG can do one. But I think Armstrong is a good bet. But it's also not only is he figuring highly on this table here, he passes the eye test, I think. And just going back to those fixtures, I got him for this fixture run really. Leeds, Burnley, Watford, Villa. I'll probably give him 2 to 3 games really. So if he hasn't scored against Leeds and Burnley, I'm going to get itchy fingers. If it doesn't score against Watford, it's time to go. And guess what? I'm going to be looking at Ivan Toney there because there's only 0.5 million difference. So I'll make sure I've got some money there. And try and find Brentford on this list. There we go. They got Crystal Palace. No, they've got Norwich. Oh, that's handy. So to be honest, I'm probably going to do that move anyway. Armstrong to Toney against Norwich. I think fixture-wise, that's quite good. So I'm saying next 4, but it's actually next 3. I think Armstrong is a great bet, and he's a great placeholder for Toney because I actually don't think Brentford's fixtures are that great until they face Burnley and Norwich. It's that Norwich game really I'm looking at. We've got Alex's community team. For those new to the show, he's a community member. It's a top 100 finisher. He's taken a break from the game, and so the Scoutcast has taken over his team. So it's the Scoutcast team. I wildcarded this week. I say I because everyone else on the Scoutcast was having babies. So they couldn't help me that much. I did run it past them and I did get some approval. I did ignore some things, and so I went for this is the team I've got here. It only got me 41 points last week, but that was, a lot of those players weren't playing or didn't do well, like Cancelo, Alexander-Arnold, who I expect to do well going forward. This is a sort of a borderline set and forget team. It's just a low management team. I like the team. We've got some risks here. We've got some nailed on players, and we've got a lot of high ceiling players as well. So the team we're going to go into, I think, into game week 8 has got Ramsdale in goal against Crystal Palace, Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, and Rudiger. Rudiger is the safest or safer of the Chelsea defenders. You've got Salah as captain. I'm not going to make the mistake of not captaining him. I've got Rafinha, who probably won't play, in which case Christensen will come in for him. If not, because we've spoken about Christensen before, Livramento will come in for him. And I may even swap them around, but I think, basically there are options there to come in there. Saka is nailed on, doing well against Crystal Palace there. Tony, I've got up front, ready for the good run that's in the future. Antonio, no reason to ditch. Lukaku, the best premium potential at the moment. And the risky one there is Zaha. Now, I've taken a leaf out of Tom Freeman's book. He now deputy editor of Fantasy Football Scout, but back when he was on the Meet the Manager video, one of the tips he gave, which has resonated with a lot of people, is take a risk with your fourth midfielder. Have a fourth midfielder, and just, it could be anyone. And I think back then it was someone like Theo Walcott when he was out of form, and it's just one of those players that is not in a lot of the template, not in the Twitter template. Might be in other people's teams in your mini league, but it's just not a player you're thinking of. And I think Zaha is one of those on penalties, mixed fixtures, but okay. And I think I could get some differential points out of Zaha for Alex's team there. Anyway, that's the hope. If not, well, he's 6.9. He can go down to pretty much anyone who is below that price, obviously. But there's a lot of options below that price. Bomo, for example, and double up on Brentford is quite a good option there. So, looking at that team, do either of you have any thoughts about transfers? I was thinking of just saving it this week, just seeing where it goes.
Yeah, save, I think.
Yeah.
I would say save. When did you get Zaha? How many weeks he's in already?
Oh, he's only been in a week or so. I wildcarded last week. Got him in for that. So I got him in for as a sort of as I said, is that sort of fourth midfield risk. And if it doesn't work out, we can move him on. But he's just that I'm not seeing him in any teams. And like when you got Vardy in, I kind of like to have one player like that.
No, I would say save. Yeah. I like to have a City mid for sure for the next few game weeks, but you already just made the move with Zaha, so it's worth giving him a go.
Yeah, so, I think so.
Good.
I'm just going to leave it there. So we've already seen. I'll just go back to your team, Pras, your wildcard team. Really, this is the sort of differential one for the discussion. But out of this, who's nailed and who's likely to make way?
I think everyone here is nailed, apart from, as I mentioned, Christensen to Livramento and Wang to Tony. Okay. That's basically my team for now. I'm very keen to hear about DCL's fitness, Bamford's fitness, Rafinha's ability to make it for the game week. But other than that, I think this is where we're at. Okay,
let's have a look at your team, Karam. Do you want to take us through who you've got and who you're captaining and why, and particularly why aren't you captaining Salah?
For the benefit of the podcast, I've got Meslier in goal, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Rudiger and White, back to 3, Gray, Salah, vice captain, Rafinha, Sarr, Antonio, Lukaku at the moment captain, and Vardy. So Lukaku came in this week for Ronaldo, and I must admit I didn't tinker too much yet about the captaincy. I bus team, I put it on Lukaku. As things progress during the week, if I feel that Lukaku is still a major or a minor doubt, I will just go for Salah. I think I might switch anyway to Salah, given the info we've got about Watford settling their coach, getting a new one. Ranieri came back to the Premier League. I just don't see that Watford can get much from this game, even without Alisson, which makes me think that I might make another move for Sarr, take him out for a hit for Torres. Ronaldo to Lukaku gave me 0.9 million in the bank. And this is exactly where I can do Sarr to Torres, for example. So this is still up in the air. Well, what I'm trying to do in general is to set up my back line. I feel I'm 1 or 2 transfers behind where I want to be. I don't have Diaz or Cancelo. But then from game week 9 and 10, I want to focus on targeting Norwich because I think that I've got 90 points from Norwich this season, only by targeting them, including captaincy against them. And that's about 20% of my total points this season, which is incredible so far.
Wow.
So there might be a way that I keep targeting them. And for the next few, you've got Lukaku, you've got Tony, you've got some really nice captains or options against them for the next few.
Neil Maupay, Trossard, Brighton.
I think I'm a bit late to the Maupay party.
I'm not sure it's a party.
Yeah. But to make these quick moves, I think I need to settle my backline. I'm trying to do that. So
looking at Norwich's fixtures next 4, obviously they've got Brighton next, then Chelsea. So you've got Lukaku in place for that. Then you've got Leeds, so you've got Rafinha in place for that. And then you've got Brentford, so presumably Tony or Mbomo.
Or Mbuemo, maybe both.
Yeah.
So I've got cover for the next few. Hopefully it keeps working out. But generally speaking, I think Salah will be my captain.
Yeah.
A hit is on the horizon. So
here's my team. So I have got Salah captain. I've got Raya in goal, so he's my sort of differential there. Playing Chelsea, so this is a bad fixture. Good fixtures coming up though. Christensen, if he doesn't play, Livramento's ready and waiting as he always is. Cancelo, if he's not going to play, Cody I've got coming in. So Wolves, I'm down to 1 Wolves and he's on the bench and I'm quite happy. And I've missed out on a Cody clean sheet recently because I've left him on the bench. So he's a kind of bench player. I'm quite happy if he comes on. Alexander-Arnold. Salah as mentioned. Jota, he's the one that may make way if it looks like he's definitely out. Greenwood, I'm very happy to play against Leicester. And then I will be looking to move him on in a week or 2. Sarr, I'm quite happy with. Liverpool without their main keeper. I'm not going to suggest Watford are going to beat Liverpool, but I am suggesting that they may concede. And Sarr's the man to do it. He's got form. Antonio, no reason to get rid. Ronaldo against Leicester, great option, I think. And Armstrong, another differential there. So it's Raya and Armstrong are my sort of star players on live FPL. My differentials. I've got Livramento, Cody, and Sissoko ready to come on. And it's Livramento and Cody. I might get some points. Moves Jota to Saka, I think. Next week, Ronaldo to Lukaku, and I may take a hit to remove Greenwood for Rafinha just in time, just looking at the fixtures, just in time for the following week when he faces Norwich, following Karam's tactic there. So I've got sort of 3 transfers in mind over the next 2 to 3 game weeks. But as I said, they're sort of in mind, take it from there. But I'm pleased I've got Cancelo in, even though he might not play and he might not get me any points. But I just feel he's one of those players I think I need to get now, because not just because I think for very good reason wildcarders are getting him in. So Pras, he's nailed in on your wildcard, I presume.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's not dwell on my team too much. Thank you, Pras. Thank you, Karam, for joining me. And thanks to all of those that have stuck with us. It's been a massively long Scoutcast. I didn't even realise that it's been nearly 2 hours. And we don't usually go on that long, but I guess we've got a lot to talk about, especially with the international break finishing. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.